What's your name?
John Wilder.
Joan Wilder? Welcome to Colombia.
If you've never seen this movie, you might think it's an Indiana Jones ripoff. I was handed this film on video cassette a long time ago, thinking it would have that similar vibe. However, nothing is further from the truth. In fact, this movie created a subgenre of romantic comedy adventures about an author who stumbles into her own creation and having the adventure that she only wrote about but never lived. But is this movie any good? Let's find out. I'm Meffistoe. Like, share, and subscribe because this is my review of the movie Romancing the Stone.
Marijuana.
Oh, you smoke it?
I went to college.
Romancing the Stone was Robert Zemeckis' third major motion picture. It was a script written by Diane Thomas that got optioned by Michael Douglas for $250,000, and it was always thought of as a ripoff of Indiana Jones. I will go through some very minor similarities later in my review. However, the original script was written in 1979, and it is very distinct from Raiders of the Lost Ark that came in a year later. In fact, the movie that is most similar to Romancing the Stone is actually the 2024 movie Argylle. But this is only in terms of the story beats, not actual story. What I found interesting is that Michael Douglas, who optioned the script and was one of the producers, didn't intend to play the leading role. He just wanted the movie to be made, which actually marks the first time this has happened to Douglas, because the second time was Falling Down, arguably his best performance in a movie. This, of course, has no bearing on the review itself. I just thought it was a funny detail attached to the film.
Okay, let's hit it. We're on a roll.
The movie starts off with a small prologue telling the story of the book written by recluse author Joan Winter, a kind of a Daniel Steele romantic adventure type writer. Joan discovers that her sister's husband has died and her sister was captured and held for ransom in Colombia. The ransom? A package sent to Joan by her sister's late husband for safekeeping. Joan flies down to Colombia and of course takes the wrong turn and ends up in the deep jungle being chased by a strange mustached man.
What?
The purse.
What are you...
La bolsa.
Luckily, she gets saved by Jack Colton, an American trying to earn a quick buck out here in the wilderness. But he is willing to guide her to the nearest phone booth. For money, of course. And that willingness extends once both of them discover that the ransom is actually a treasure map that Joan received from Eduardo, her sister's husband.
El Corazon.
I need you to bring that map to me in Colombia.
Romancing the Stone isn't your typical swashbuckling adventure like Indiana Jones series or Solomon's Mines. It's a story about an author who ends up being the hero of the kind of story she only wrote about, but as she was a recluse person, never really experienced herself. And this is the kind of story I actually enjoy. Our main character starts at one point and at the end, because of difficult experiences, becomes something else. Even the term romancing the stone comes from the real world of jewelry, where the phrase is used to describe the fitting of the stone in the setting of the jewel, which obviously neatly describes Joan's entire journey throughout the film.
Well, this can't be all. There's got to be another clue here.
Well, landmarks change, things grow, all that stuff, you know.
On face value, Romancing the Stone isn't a big masterpiece of acting or cinematography or even special effects, even though it is Robert Zemeckis. But the screenplay is very deceptively smart. To keep this spoiler-free, I would say that Diane Thomas really knew her classics and how to tell a similar tale, but approaching it in a very different way. And maybe that's what drew Douglas to the script. I can't tell, and I don't really know.
Cartagena's over there on the coast.
Oh, but they told me this bus.
Who told you that?
That man that...
A nice man who pulled a gun on you.
As for casting, Danny DeVito, who's Douglas's real-life friend, got cast for that particular reason too. He serves as the comic relief of the movie. He's supposed to be some sort of a bad guy, but he rarely performs that particular duty and mostly facilitates our hero's actions and escapes and does most of the reacting to them rather than leading them. He ends up being the butt of jokes and helps to space out the different scenes.
And one more thing, Ira.
Joan. Yeah.
You are the luckiest son of a bitch that ever walked the face of the earth.
Kathleen Turner was almost not even cast to this movie. She was cast eventually because of a biting incident with the actress Zemeckis actually wanted to cast. Deborah Winger. And that's an interesting story, but not for today. But Turner played the demure author to the T, and as the movie chugs along, you can see her confidence grow and grow as she gets more engrossed into this adventure that she is having.
I suppose it's my way of living in another age.
If you did that, I never would have met you.
As I said, Michael Douglas was not even supposed to be Jack Colton. A few other actors much older than him were considered, like Clint Eastwood, Jack Nicholson, and Paul Newman, and even contemporaries like Kurt Russell, which, to be fair, Jack Colton and Jack Burton are kind of the same type of character, and the thought of Russell playing both made me laugh and chuckle and actually think about how it would actually look like. But of course, Douglas, even though I think he played out of pocket, does a pretty decent job of carrying this unlikely, almost Han Solo type of a guy who eventually comes through at the end, but he's not necessarily the guy who saves the day.
What the hell are you doing? Drinking? I could have been killing. You're drinking. As for the Indiana Jones comparison, story-wise, I don't see it. It's a totally different adventure from Raiders or Temple of Doom, but it does have a rickety bridge scene like Temple of Doom, and the way it was shot kind of reminds me of the ending of the Temple of Doom bridge scene, but nothing more than that. To me, it is a real stretch, especially considering that both were in production at roughly the same time, and Romancing the Stone came out 2 months before Temple of Doom, and the only reason it came out in 1984 in the first place is that the movie's original cut was longer and did not test well. And 5 months after the wrap-up, Zemeckis had to film additional scenes to cover the edit changes and the downsizing of the entire length of the movie. And the studio thought so poorly of him, they actually fired him from his next project that he was attached to, a little film called Cocoon. Luckily, this cleared his schedule to work on a different little project, a small movie called Back to the Future.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, if you had any kind of manners, if you...
To summarize, Romancing the Stone is a well-written action-adventure romantic comedy that works well despite the fact that the sum of its parts are less than stellar. I do say it's a comedy, but the comedic moments are very subtle except for the DeVito parts, and they come out of nowhere to surprise you. And that particular fact gives the movie its own little charm. The writing was really good for this type of movie, and it's a shame that Diane Thomas suffered such a tragic end after she and her boyfriend crashed the car that Michael Douglas gave her as a thank you after the massive success of the film. This is a movie that I have not watched in a very long while and that I've rewatched recently and thoroughly enjoyed myself. It does slog for the first 20 minutes or so, but when it gets going, the fun adventure parts just keep rolling along, and suddenly you're at the end craving for more story. And so I will recommend you give this movie a watch, and to me, this movie just cements why 1984 is one of the greatest, if not the greatest year in movie history.
I finished, sweetheart. You want to celebrate?
I thank you for watching, and remember, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I'll see you on the next video.